"Excuse me, would your daughter like to join me for breakfast?" Blake Carter said, folding his newspaper with the unhurried calm of a man who had long been accustomed to being listened to. Hours earlier, Maya Williams had stood in the back room of the nursing home where she worked, her hands still red from washing linens in icy water. Her uniform was damp, her shoes soaked, and her eyes swollen from a sleepless night inside a broken-down car. She had clutched the final paycheck in her hand, torn open the envelope, and seen it less than what was promised, a deduction she hadn't authorized. She had marched straight to her supervisor's office. "Please, Miss Horton, I need this week's full pay," Maya pleaded, voice trembling. "You cut hours I already worked. I need this. My daughter and I." "You people always got a story," her boss sneered without looking up from her screen. "You're lucky I even kept you on this long. Always late. Always tired. Always something." "I've never missed a shift," Maya's voice cracked. "My car broke down, but I walked here. I'm trying. I'm really trying." "Not my problem," the woman said. "Now get your stuff and go. You're done here." Maya didn't move. "Please, don't do this. Just until Friday. I'll take the night shifts. I'll clean the floors." "You think begging changes anything?" The woman leaned back in her chair. "You're dismissed, Miss Williams." "No." Security didn't escort her out, there was no need. She left on her own, holding back tears with a willpower she was running out of. That morning wind bit harder than usual as she carried Lily, 5 years old, bundled in an old faded coat, down the long sidewalk that led toward downtown. Her little girl hadn't said much, just quietly asked, "Do we have breakfast today, Mommy?" Maya had lied. "We'll see, baby." They walked for over an hour. Her car sat in the parking lot of a gas station, dead and useless, its heater broken, its engine stubborn. She didn't dare ask anyone for help, not after the last time she had been met with suspicion and glares. She finally pushed open the door to Daisy's diner. The warmth inside hit her face like a gentle wave. The scent of pancakes and bacon made her knees weak. Her only goal was to sit just for a little while, to let Lily warm up before the cold swallowed them whole again. The waitress behind the counter looked up, her eyes scanning Maya's threadbare coat and worn shoes. She didn't smile. Maya kept her head low, guided Lily to a corner booth, and whispered softly, "Let's just pretend, okay? We're having pancakes and hot chocolate." But before she could even settle in, the waitress stormed over. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "This isn't a shelter. If you're not ordering, you can't stay." Maya looked up, startled. I was just trying to warm my daughter for a few minutes. We'll leave in a moment." The waitress scoffed. "People like you always got an excuse. I'm not running a charity here." Maya's face flushed with humiliation. "Please, she's cold. Then maybe try parenting better," the woman snapped, reaching for Maya's arm. Lily whimpered as Maya stood quickly, bumping the corner of the table and hitting her hip hard. The pain shot through her, but she refused to cry. Not in front of her daughter, not in front of strangers. The waitress turned away with a smirk as if she'd just swatted away a stray dog. Maya took Lily's hand, whispering, "Come on, sweetheart," and turned to leave. That's when it happened. From across the room, a man who had said nothing until that moment, who had been quietly reading the Wall Street Journal and sipping lukewarm coffee, spoke. "Excuse me, would your daughter like to join me for breakfast?" The words hung in the air like a still note in an empty chapel. Maya stopped in her tracks. Maya's stomach clenched, not from hunger but pride. She hadn't eaten since the day before, and Lily had only had a bruised apple for dinner. But accepting anything from a stranger, especially a wealthy white man in a sleepy Pennsylvania town where everyone watched everything, that wasn't easy. Still, she looked down at Lily. The girl's lips were slightly blue from the cold, her tiny hands buried in the sleeves of a too small sweater. Maya swallowed. Her pride had taken her this far, but it couldn't feed her child. She slowly turned, eyes meeting the man's. He looked out of place in this faded diner, sharp black coat, over a charcoal sweater, pressed pants, and a silver watch glinting beneath his cuff. A man in control. A man who didn't need to explain himself. He didn't smile. He didn't pity. He simply gestured to the booth across from him. "Just breakfast," he said again. "No strings." Maya opened her mouth, then closed it. Pride, exhaustion, shame, they collided in her chest. Her lip trembled. She looked down at Lily, who was now staring again at the man's plate-stacked pancakes, creamy scrambled eggs, and golden hash browns that steamed in the morning light like something holy. Her daughter didn't speak, just looked. Maya breathed in, out. "If it's no trouble," she said softly. "None at all." The man waved over the waitress, who now looked uneasy. "2 more plates," he said. "Same as mine." He turned back to his paper as if this happened every day. Maya and Lily Saturday, no one spoke for a while. When the plates arrived, Lily let out a soft wow that made Blake glance up. He didn't speak, just watched her dig in, hands careful, movements delicate like she didn't believe the food was really hers. Maya turned to the window. The first bite made Lily close her eyes in happiness. A giggle escaped her mouth, pure, light, real. Maya's vision blurred. Blake saw the tear roll down her cheek. "This place has terrible coffee," he said casually, "but they do breakfast right." That earned the tiniest smile from Maya. "I'm Maya," she whispered. "And she's Lily." "I'm Blake," he replied. "Just Blake." After the food was gone and Lily leaned on Maya's side in sleepy comfort, Maya tried to offer change quarters, nickels, and pride. Blake pushed it back gently. "It's taken care of." "I don't like charity," she said, voice rough. "It wasn't charity," he answered. "It was breakfast." Outside, the wind had picked up again. Blake walked them to the door, holding it open with the grace of a man raised with old manners. He looked at the car parked across the street, its engine hood slightly ajar, the passenger window duct-taped. "Having trouble with the car?" "It's not really a car anymore," Maya replied, trying for humor but failing. "Mind if I take a look?" "You don't have to. Wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it." 10 minutes later, Blake had the hood open. His hands moved with confidence. He didn't talk much. Just checked, tested, and turned. When the engine rumbled to life, Lily clapped her hands in delight. "You fixed it." Blake gave a small smile, stepping back, wiping his hands on a rag. Maya didn't know what to say. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded note, and held it out. "In case you ever need anything," he said simply. That night, with rain beating gently on the windshield of a barely warm car, Maya unfolded the paper. Just a name, a number, an address. She looked at her daughter sleeping peacefully beside her, and then she dialed. If this story touched you, give it a like, and comment where you're watching from. Someone nearby might be watching too. Rain streaked across the windshield like veins of worry as Maya clutched the old flip phone to her ear. The line crackled once, twice, before a voice answered with quiet certainty. "This is Blake." She hesitated. Her voice, barely above a whisper, trembled. "It's Maya." From the diner. A pause. Then, "Where are you?" Maya looked around the empty gas station parking lot, where her car sat beneath the flickering yellow glow of a dying street lamp. Lily slept beside her, wrapped in a faded fleece blanket, her mouth slightly open, her breath fogging the glass. "We're parked behind the Shell on Westfield Avenue," Maya replied. "Near the closed tire shop." "I'll be there in 20, he said. No questions. No pity. Just action. When Blake arrived, the sleek black SUV seemed almost too clean for the lot. He stepped out with a large umbrella and 2 brown paper bags that steamed in the cold. Maya opened the door slowly, shielding her daughter from the drizzle. "You didn't have to come," she said softly. He looked at her, expression unreadable. "You called." Blake leaned down and opened the passenger door gently. "Bring her," he said. Maya hesitated only a second before lifting Lily, now half awake and mumbling, "Is it morning, Mama?" "Almost," Maya whispered, kissing her forehead. The interior of Blake's SUV smelled faintly of cedar and leather. Warmth enveloped them the moment the doors shut, and Maya felt something she hadn't in weeks safe. Blake drove in silence, windshield wipers slashing rhythmically. They passed quiet neighborhoods with porch lights glowing faintly like stars too tired to shine. No words were needed. The quiet between them wasn't awkward, it was relief. 10 minutes later, they pulled into a long gravel driveway flanked by old oaks. At the end stood a white farmhouse, lights dim inside, and behind it, a small cottage tucked under a weeping willow. Blake parked beside the cottage. "This was my mother's guest house," he said. "She used it for visiting nurses or family friends who needed time." Maya's breath caught. "I can't accept this. It's too much." "Nah, it's just a roof and a bed." "For one night," he said. "We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." She didn't move. Your daughter's asleep, Blake added gently. That's the only thing that matters right now. Maya opened the door. The moment her boots hit the wooden porch of the guest house, a memory flickered her grandmother's home in Georgia. The creak of floorboards and the scent of warm bread. Inside, the cottage was simple and clean. A twin bed with a patchwork quilt, a couch, a tiny kitchenette, and a shelf with old books and faded photos. A space that had once held life, now waiting quietly to hold it again. Blake placed the bags on the counter. Soup, some rolls, tea. You brought food? She asked, stunned. He nodded. Didn't think you'd ask. So I didn't wait. Maya laid Lily gently on the bed, pulling the quilt over her. The child sighed, content, already drifting back to dreams. In the kitchen, Maya poured tea with shaking hands. Blake didn't sit. He stood near the door, as if ready to leave at any moment. She finally turned to him. Why are you doing this? His eyes met hers, unblinking. A long time ago, someone helped me. My wife. She believed kindness wasn't a transaction, just something you give when you can. Maya nodded slowly, unsure what to say. She stared down at the mug, then took a small sip. Her stomach clenched, unused to warmth. I lost my job today, she said suddenly. They didn't even let me explain. I figured, Blake replied softly. I've tried so hard to stay afloat. But the car, the rent, and now Lily's school says I need a permanent address to re-enroll her. It's like the system's built to watch you fall. It is, he said simply, but some of us are here to break that cycle. Silence again, not heavy, just full. Maya glanced toward the bed, where Lily slept soundly. She hasn't had a real bed in 3 weeks. Blake looked away, jaw tightening. No child should know what that feels like. When he moved to leave, Maya stopped him. Thank you for all of this. He didn't respond with words, just gave a short nod, then stepped into the rain. The door closed softly behind him. Maya sat on the edge of the couch, hands still wrapped around the tea mug. She listened to the silence, not the silence of emptiness, but the kind that lives in safe places. The hum of the refrigerator, the rustle of leaves outside, the steady breathing of her child. Tears came, slow and silent. She wasn't sure what the next day would bring, but for the first time in weeks, she wasn't scared of it. She was ready. The sun peeked through the sheer curtains of the guest house with the kind of gentleness that felt like mercy. Maya opened her eyes slowly, blinking at the soft morning light streaming across the room. For a second, she didn't remember where she was. Then she heard the steady hum of the heater, saw Lily curled up under a real blanket, and her heart slowed into something close to calm. She sat up, her muscles sore from days of sleeping in cramped spaces. The couch hadn't been perfect, but compared to the car seat she'd molded herself into night after night, it felt like luxury. Lily stirred. Mama? I'm right here, baby, Maya said, brushing a soft curl away from her daughter's forehead. Did you sleep okay? Lily nodded, eyes still dreamy. It was warm. Warm. One word, simple and small. Yet it punched Maya right in the chest. Her throat tightened. She got up and tiptoed to the kitchenette. On the small counter sat a brown paper bag with a sticky note. Coffee. Eggs. There's cream in the fridge. B. Blake. She poured the coffee, added a splash of cream, and took a long sip. It was strong, maybe a little too strong, but it grounded her. Maya had gone to sleep unsure if this was real, and woke up still half convinced she'd dreamed it all. She found some bread, toasted it, and made scrambled eggs for Lily. Her daughter ate slowly, still waking up, her feet swinging beneath the kitchen stool. Watching her eat, Maya felt the weight of uncertainty settle in again. They couldn't stay here forever. She needed to act before kindness turned into obligation. After breakfast, Maya bundled Lily into her coat and decided to go check on the car. It was still parked near the main house where Blake had left it. She didn't expect it to magically work again, but she had to try. Something about doing nothing felt worse than being stuck. As she approached, she saw Blake standing by the hood, sleeves already rolled up, a tool in his hand. I was just coming to look, she called out, embarrassed. Blake looked up, eyes squinting slightly in the light. Morning. Thought I'd take another crack at it. Maya shifted awkwardly. You really don't have to keep fixing things for me. He gave a half shrug. I like fixing things. Gives me something to do. She stayed quiet, watching him. He moved with the practiced ease of someone used to solving problems without fanfare. There was no huffing, no cursing, no showing off, just quiet focus. Lily clung to her side, peeking around her coat. Is he fixing our car again? She whispered. I think so, Maya said gently. But remember, it might not work. Blake looked over at the girl and gave her a small wink. Let's see if she wants to purr today. He turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then died. Maya sighed. I figured, Blake muttered, wiping his hands. Starters fried, batteries barely hanging on. It's a miracle it got you to town in the first place. I was hoping for one more week out of it, Maya said, trying to laugh. It came out thin. Blake studied her. You need reliable transport. For work, for Lily. I need a miracle, she corrected. He was quiet for a long moment, then asked, What's your plan? Maya folded her arms. Find another job, hopefully one that doesn't involve scrubbing toilets for people who pretend I don't exist. Save up. Maybe rent a room somewhere decent. Get Lily back in school. How long do you think that'll take? She glanced down. Too long. Blake nodded once, then turned back to the car, resting his hand on the roof. I know this looks like the end of the road, he said, but sometimes it's just a turn. She frowned. A turn into what? I don't know yet, he said honestly, but I think you're not supposed to walk it alone. Those words hung between them. Maya felt a prickle in her chest. Not suspicion. Not discomfort. Something deeper. A tremor of belief. Blake wiped his hands again and stepped toward her, speaking lower now. Look, I've got space here. The guest house isn't being used. Lily's safe. You're safe. You don't have to figure everything out in a day. I'm not looking for pity, Maya said quickly. I'm not offering any. She looked down at her boots, then back up. It's just hard to trust when you're always told you're the problem. Blake nodded. Then, let me be the exception. Maya didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. Come by the main house when you're ready, he said. There's some food in the fridge and a few things I can show you. We'll talk options. He walked off down the gravel path, leaving her there with the broken car, the wind rustling through bare tree branches, and Lily squeezing her hand. Is he a good man? Lily asked softly. Maya stared after him. I think, maybe he's trying to be. That afternoon, Maya cleaned the guest house from top to bottom. Not because anyone asked her to, but because it was something she could control. The act of wiping, straightening, organizing it gave her back a small piece of herself. When she opened the fridge later, she found fresh fruit, milk, even a tiny bag of chocolate chips. On the top shelf, a sticky note read, Lily might like these. B. Later, Lily fell asleep on the couch, a book resting on her chest, her face soft and unburdened. Maya stood at the window, watching the sun dip low over the fields. Her car was still broken, her job was still gone, but for the first time in weeks, the road ahead didn't look like a dead end. Maybe, just maybe, it was a turn. The late November sun dipped below the tree line, casting long golden fingers across the porch of the guest house. Maya stood at the door, arms crossed loosely over her chest, her breath curling in the cool dusk air. Behind her, Lily giggled softly on the floor, surrounded by crayons and the half-formed outlines of stick figure drawings. The smell of warm bread and simmering soup filled the tiny cottage like a gentle memory. It had been only 24 hours since she'd made the call to Blake, yet the guest house already felt different. Not like home, but like a place where she could breathe without waiting for the world to kick her in the ribs. She set the table without thinking: 2 bowls, 2 spoons, a small plate of rolls, and the tea Blake had left. There were no grand gestures, no silver platters, just warm food. And kindness. Lily crawled up onto one of the chairs, legs swinging, eyes wide as Maya poured soup into her bowl. Did Mr. Blake make this? She asked. I think he bought it from the market, Maya replied, but he picked it out for us. Lily dipped a piece of bread into the soup and tasted it. It's good, she said, then added thoughtfully. He's not like the lady at the diner. Maya gave a small smile. No, baby, he's not. After dinner, Maya cleaned the dishes while Lily colored. Every few minutes, the girl would hold up another drawing, mostly hearts, flowers, and a new one of a tall man in a black coat holding hands with a girl in pink. Maya didn't ask questions. She just taped them to the fridge with quiet reverence. By the time the sun had vanished, the cottage was steeped in stillness. Lily had fallen asleep with her head on the couch pillow, clutching a plush bear Blake had left on the bed earlier that day. No note, no explanation, just there. Maya wrapped a blanket around her daughter and watched her sleep. The sound of Lily's breathing, soft, steady, was a lullaby in itself. She turned off the lights and sat by the window, nursing a mug of tea. Outside, the farmhouse glowed faintly with a single porch light. She could see Blake's silhouette moving inside, slow and steady. A man built from discipline and quiet purpose. He hadn't asked anything of her. Not once. And that was what made her uneasy. People always asked. They wanted gratitude, loyalty, favors, or at least a confession of helplessness to feed their own egos. But Blake had given space, food, and heat, then stepped back. It made her question his motives, and more painfully, her own readiness to accept goodness without suspicion. She leaned her head against the window pane. A thought flickered in her mind, uninvited. What if this is the beginning? The knock came just after 9. 3 short raps. Not loud, not urgent. Maya opened the door to find Blake standing there in his usual black coat, holding a book in one hand and a wrapped plate in the other. Didn't mean to intrude, he said, but I thought Lily might like this. He held out the plate. On it sat 2 sugar cookies and a note written in a careful hand. Sleep tight, brave girl. Maya blinked at the note. She's already out, but thank you. Really. Blake handed her the book. Something for you. It's an old favorite. My mother used to read it to calm herself down. She took it slowly. To Kill a Mockingbird. I haven't read this in years, she said softly. Blake nodded. Seemed fitting. And there was a moment, stretched thin between them. A tension not of romance, but of history. His, hers, and the echoes they hadn't yet named. I saw the drawings, he said. Maya's face flushed. She draws everyone she trusts. She gave me hands, he said with a small chuckle. Most kids don't. Maya smiled, genuinely this time. She trusts fast. I don't. Blake looked at her. That's okay. You can take your time. She opened the screen door wider. Would you like some tea? It's probably cold by now, but I could heat it. He hesitated for just a second before stepping inside. The cottage felt warmer with him there, not just in temperature, but in spirit. Maya reheated the kettle while Blake looked around, his eyes settling on the fridge art. She's got vision, he said, nodding toward the newest drawing. Maya followed his gaze. She sees the world simpler than we do. Maybe she sees it clearer. They sat at the small table, sipping tea in silence, the kind of silence that didn't demand filling. Through the window, the moonlight spilled across the porch, casting silver on the railing. Why here? Maya asked suddenly. Blake looked at her. This place, you could live anywhere. A man like you. He took a slow breath. I was raised here. My mother passed 6 years ago. My wife 2 years after that. I stayed because I didn't know where else to go. I'm sorry. No. He nodded, but his face didn't flinch. Emma always said the world moves faster than people can heal. She wanted to slow it down. Help people. Quietly. She would have liked you. Maya gripped her mug tighter. You don't even know me. I know what you didn't say. That tells me a lot. They sat in silence again, longer this time. Blake finished his tea and stood. I'll let you get some rest. Maya walked him to the door. He paused before leaving. Tomorrow, if you're up for it, I'd like to show you around the farmhouse. There's work, if you want it. Her heart quickened. Work? Nothing fancy, but honest. She nodded. I'll think about it. Blake tipped his head. That's all I ask. He stepped off the porch, disappearing into the soft night, the gravel crunching underfoot. Maya closed the door and leaned against it, her pulse still steadying. Behind her, Lily stirred on the couch but didn't wake. Maya looked at the book in her hand. the cookie plate on the counter, and the quilt wrapped around her daughter. This wasn't home. Not yet. But it was the first place in a long time that didn't feel like running. The morning began with the scent of toast and soft humming. Maya stood at the kitchenette, her hair loosely tied back, wearing an oversized sweater Blake had dropped off with groceries. It was warmer than anything she owned. The sleeves hung past her wrists, and the soft fabric still smelled faintly of cedarwood. Lily sat at the tiny table with her feet dangling, crayons spread out around her like sunbeams. Her tongue poked out in concentration as she worked on her newest masterpiece. "What are you drawing this time?" Maya asked, placing a plate of scrambled eggs in front of her. Lily didn't look up. "Mr. Blake and me." Maya smiled gently. "Oh yeah? What's he doing?" "Fixing our car," Lily said, as if it were the most heroic act she'd ever witnessed. "And he's smiling." Maya chuckled under her breath. "He doesn't smile that much." Lily glanced up. "He did when the car made the vroom sound." Fair enough, Maya thought. After breakfast, Lily proudly held up the finished drawing. It was crude, just two stick figures, one tall and one small, both with wide smiles. The tall one had a black coat and brown shoes, and next to him was a bubble with the words "vroom" scribbled inside. Maya didn't hesitate. She pulled a magnet from the drawer and stuck the drawing on the fridge, right beside yesterday's family pancake day sketch. Blake was slowly becoming a part of their world, whether Maya had planned for it or not. Later that morning, after Lily curled up with her coloring book and a mug of warm milk, Maya stepped outside for fresh air. The sky was the color of cold steel, and the trees stood bare against the wind. Blake had said he'd be working on the barn, and she figured it was time she followed through on her offer to help. She found him behind the farmhouse, sleeves rolled to his elbows, clearing old firewood near the shed. His movements were efficient, almost rhythmic. There was something oddly peaceful about watching him work, not in a romantic way, but in a grounded, human way, like watching someone who'd made peace with quiet. "Morning," Maya called out. He turned, lifted a hand in greeting. "Hey, you sleep okay?" "I did, thank you," Blake nodded, then tilted his head toward the shed. "I was just clearing some space. My mother used to store old garden tools here. Place hasn't seen a broom since she passed." Maya walked over, her boots crunching on the gravel. "You said there might be some work?" Blake set down the axe he'd been holding. "Yeah, if you're interested, there's plenty. Cleaning the barn, organizing some paperwork from my mother's clinic. She used to keep files by hand. Thought I'd digitize them." "She was a nurse, right?" "Yep, small town angel, everyone called her." He gave a quiet smile. "Raised half this town with nothing but gauze, coffee, and stubbornness." They moved to the side of the barn, where he opened the heavy wooden door. Inside, the dust hung thick in the sunbeams. Old farm tools leaned against the walls. A rocking chair sat forgotten in the corner, draped in a moth-eaten quilt, and on the back wall, a framed photograph hung slightly crooked. Blake reached up and straightened it. Maya stepped closer. The photo was black and white, his mother in her nursing uniform, holding the hand of a little boy with messy dark hair. The boy looked about 7, shy and wide-eyed. "That's you," she said softly. He nodded. "She brought me everywhere, said I was her shadow. You still are, in a way." He looked at her then. "I'm trying." There was something about the way he said it, not a boast, not a deflection, just truth. They worked in the barn for over an hour. Maya swept the dust, folded old linens, and sorted through boxes of medical supplies long expired. Blake pulled out crates of records, carefully labeling them for scanning. At one point, Maya paused beside a stack of old journals, his mother's handwriting on each cover. "She kept notes?" "Always," Blake said. "Said people's stories were as important as their symptoms." Maya opened one at random. A dated entry read, "Mrs. Holt lost her son in Vietnam. Not sleeping. Gave her chamomile and told her I'd come by tomorrow. Sometimes medicine is just someone showing up." Maya closed the journal with reverence. "She sounds like someone I wish I'd met." "She would have liked you," Blake said. Then he added after a beat, "You remind me of her, actually." That stopped her. "How?" "She didn't take nonsense. She didn't apologize for being tired. And she never stopped fighting for people who were too worn down to fight for themselves." Maya looked away, throat tight. "That's not always a compliment, you know. Being tired." I didn't say it was easy. I said it was brave. They finished the last of the sorting as the light began to dim. Blake walked her back to the guest house, and for once, the silence between them wasn't filled with questions. It was companionship, quiet and steady. Inside, Lily was finishing a new drawing. She looked up as they walked in, her smile wide. "Mr. Blake," she called. "Look." She held up a picture of the three of them, him, Maya, and herself standing under a sun with long yellow rays and a house behind them with a crooked chimney. Above it, in wobbly handwriting, "Our friend." Blake crouched beside her, took the picture in his hand. "Is this our house?" "It's your house, but we can share it," Lily said, matter of fact. Maya watched, frozen. It should have made her nervous, but it didn't. It made her feel something else. "Zayn." Blake tapped the page lightly. "You're a pretty good artist." "I want to make a whole wall of pictures," Lily said, "like a museum." "Well," Blake said, glancing at Maya, "every museum needs a curator." Jen. That night, after Lily was tucked into bed, Maya stood at the fridge, staring at the growing gallery of drawings. She added the newest one with a magnet shaped like a heart. Then she whispered to herself, barely audible, "Maybe this is the turn." The next morning brought with it a sharp chill, the kind that lingered in the bones even after the sun had fully risen. Maya stood outside the guest house wrapped in a flannel blanket, a mug of black coffee warming her hands. She watched the golden light touch the fields beyond the fence, stretching over the bare November trees like a slow exhale. Behind her, inside the cozy cottage, Lily was still asleep, breathing deep and even beneath the patchwork quilt. It was a rare peace, one Maya didn't dare disturb. She took a slow sip, letting the bitterness of the coffee ground her. It was strong. No cream, the way her grandfather used to drink it. He used to say, "Good coffee doesn't ask for sweetness. It tells the truth." She hadn't thought of that man in years. The porch creaked behind her, and she turned to see Blake walking up the steps with a second mug in hand. He was in jeans and a simple gray sweater, no jacket, though the air was brisk. His presence didn't surprise her anymore. He moved like someone who belonged to the land, quiet, intentional, part of the rhythm. "Didn't think you'd be up this early," he said, offering the second mug. "I didn't sleep much," she admitted, accepting it. "Bad dreams?" "No," she said, then paused, "just not used to feeling. Still." Blake sat down on the step beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "Still is hard when you're used to running." Maya looked at him. "You always talk like that?" He smirked faintly. "Comes with the territory." They drank in silence for a moment, watching as a few birds danced across the field, their wings catching the morning light. "I found one of your mother's journals yesterday," Maya said quietly. Blake nodded, not looking at her. "She wrote a lot. People thought she was nosy. But really, she was just paying attention. She sounded like someone who didn't just do her job, she carried it." "She carried everyone," he said, "especially me." There was something fragile in his voice. Maya didn't push, but he continued. "She raised me alone. My father left before I could form a memory of him. She never remarried. Said she didn't have time for men who weren't brave enough to love fully." Maya smiled. "She sounds like she was all grit." She was, and grace. Blake looked down at his coffee, fingers wrapped tightly around the mug. "She got sick fast. Pancreatic cancer. By the time they caught it, it was months, not years." "I'm sorry," Maya said softly. "I stayed with her until the end," he continued. "She wouldn't let anyone else. She made me promise to keep the house open. Not sell it. Not forget where I came from. She must have known you'd meet someone like me." He glanced at her then, one brow raised. "You think she planned this? I think women like her don't waste time on things that don't matter." Blake smiled, but it faded quickly. "When Emma died, my wife, I broke the promise. I shut it all down. This house, the barn, the guest house. I let it all go cold. I didn't want to remember anything." "What changed?" He looked at her. "You, and a little girl who thinks I can fix things." Maya turned her eyes to the field, heart thudding in her chest. "I don't know what to do with that," she admitted. "I don't know how to let someone take care of me without feeling like I owe them something." "You don't owe me," Blake said. "This isn't about debts." "Then what is it?" He hesitated. "Maybe I just needed someone to believe in again. And maybe you did." too. The silence between them thickened, not uncomfortable but full of weight. A kind of understanding settled over them, two broken people. Different worlds, same scars. Maya stood up slowly. I should wake Lily. She's fine, Blake said. Let her sleep. Kids need peace more than breakfast. Maya nodded. I should get started on the old paperwork you mentioned. I'll bring it by after lunch. It's dusty and stubborn like most things around here. She smiled faintly. I can handle stubborn. Well, as she walked back inside, she felt Blake's eyes on her back, not intrusive, not expectant, just there. Inside, Lily was stirring. Maya knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Morning, Mama, Lily mumbled. Morning, sunshine. Lily stretched and looked around. Can we stay here today? For now, Maya said, smiling. We've got some work to do. Later that afternoon, Blake brought over 2 cardboard boxes filled with old paper files, a small scanner, and a laptop that looked like it hadn't been updated in years. She was organized in theory, he said, setting the boxes on the table. In reality, she kept everything from grocery lists to medical charts in the same folder. Maya opened the top file, scanning a page dated 1989. This woman documented entire lives. She believed stories deserved to be preserved, Blake said, even the small ones. Maya began sorting, careful and methodical. She had done admin work before, years ago, and muscle memory kicked in. Names, dates, symptoms, notes. She read them all, sometimes pausing when a line caught her. Mr. Riley says he misses the way his wife used to fold his socks. I told him grief is the price we pay for love. By the end of the afternoon, she had scanned over 40 files, labeled 2 binders, and organized 3 folders by decade. Blake returned just as Lily woke from her nap. She's a machine, he said, looking over the tidy piles. I thought it'd take a week. Maya shrugged. I needed to feel useful. You are. He left shortly after, but not before placing a new drawing magnetized to the fridge, a sketch Lily had done of him and Maya, standing side by side, no longer stick figures but full shapes, with the word home written above in her crooked letters. Maya stared at the drawing long after he was gone. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, she allowed herself to believe it might be something worth staying for. The first whispers started at the post office. Mrs. Agnes Kellerman, a longtime resident of Maple Creek and self-appointed keeper of the town's moral compass, noticed the child's drawing pinned on the local community board. It had fallen from Maya's coat pocket when she was mailing a form Blake had helped her fill out an address change for Lily's school enrollment. The drawing showed 3 smiling figures, Maya, Lily, and a tall man in a black coat with brown hair. They stood in front of a house under a sun with big yellow rays. A scribbled caption read, "Us, at our new house, Uncle Blake." Mrs. Kellerman didn't like mysteries, or strangers, or the way the world was changing without her permission. By that afternoon, her phone had already buzzed with 5 different versions of the same story. Did you hear Blake Carter has a woman living on his property? She's got a kid. I think she's that nurse who got fired from the retirement center. Poor man. Still grieving Emma, and now this. Or maybe it's Charity. You know how Blake is. And she's, well, not from around here. The murmurs were soft, but not harmless. In small towns like Maple Creek, gossip had its own heartbeat, its own speed. It slipped through churches, grocery stores, and gas station counters like smoke under a door. It found cracks, filled them with assumption, and called it truth. Back at the guest house, Maya had no idea she had become someone's subject. She was too busy scrubbing the floors and humming along to Lily's laughter as the girl danced barefoot with a stuffed bear. The air smelled of lemon cleaner and cinnamon toast. Maya had started baking again, nothing fancy, just simple recipes Blake's mother had written on yellowing index cards tucked in a tin on the pantry shelf. Something about following instructions soothed her, reminded her that not everything in life was chaos. When Blake arrived around noon with a toolbox and a small box of books for Lily, his smile faltered the moment he stepped inside. You okay? Maya asked, immediately noticing the tension in his jaw. He set the box down carefully. Words gotten around. Maya's body stiffened. About me? He nodded. About us. She crossed her arms. I knew it was too good to be quiet. Blake sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. It's a small town. People talk. What are they saying? Her voice was even, but her eyes sharpened. That I've taken in a woman I barely know. That it's not proper. That I've lost my mind. And because I'm black? She asked bluntly. He didn't answer, but the silence spoke volumes. Maya exhaled, long and slow. I should have known better. Kindness comes with conditions in places like this. No, Blake said firmly. You've done nothing wrong. They have. She looked away, jaw clenched. It doesn't matter. People like me were always a threat. Too loud. Too needy. Too visible. If we stay quiet, we're weak. If we speak, we're angry. It's a no-win game. Blake stepped closer. I don't care what they think. Well, I do, she snapped, then caught herself and softened. Not for me, for Lily. She's already been through so much. His eyes softened. I understand. No, you don't, she said, quieter now. You never had to walk into a grocery store and feel every eye on your child like she doesn't belong. You never had to tell your daughter not to touch anything just so nobody thinks she's stealing. Blake didn't defend himself. He just listened. That, more than anything, earned Maya's respect. After a moment, he said, What do you want me to do? She hesitated. Then, let's not pretend we're invisible. Let's just be real. If anyone asks, we're here. We're surviving. And we're not ashamed of it. Blake nodded once. Agreed. Later that afternoon, Blake drove into town to pick up supplies. He walked into the hardware store where the local men played judge and jury with folded arms and narrowed eyes. He didn't flinch when Sam Duggan, a retired sheriff, muttered, Bringing in strays now, Carter? Blake looked him in the eye. She's not a stray. She's a guest. And a better person than half the people in this town. Sam grunted. Emma wouldn't have. Blake cut him off. Emma would have done exactly this. He left them speechless. Meanwhile, back at the guest house, Lily stood proudly in front of her newest masterpiece, a finger-painted sign that read, Welcome to our home. Ziggery. Maya laughed as she cleaned the streaks of paint off her daughter's arms. What made you paint that? She asked. Because it is home now, Lily said simply. Even if it's just for a little while. Maya knelt beside her. You know, you're braver than you think. Lily grinned, then reached for another brush. As the sun began to set, Blake returned. He walked through the door holding a new doormat that read, You belong here. He placed it in front of the guest house without a word. Maya stared at it, her chest tight. You know they're not going to stop talking, right? I hope they don't, he said. Let them talk. Maybe they'll finally say something worth hearing. That night, the wind picked up, rustling the trees around the cottage. Maya tucked Lily into bed, then stepped onto the porch with her tea. Blake stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the sky. Thanks for the mat, she said. He smiled faintly. You earned it. No, you gave it. Same thing. They stood in silence, shoulder to shoulder, neither moving. Eventually, Maya whispered, They don't scare me. Not really. But the idea that Lily might grow up thinking she's a burden, that terrifies me. Blake looked at her. She won't. Not as long as she's got you. And not while I'm around. Maya stared at him, surprised by the quiet certainty in his voice. Then, almost without thinking, she said, You're not what I expected. Neither are you, he replied. And in the quiet that followed, the ghosts of the town's whispers faded just for a moment into something softer. A few days passed, and with them came a rhythm Maya hadn't felt in months. Mornings began with scrambled eggs and Lily's sleepy smile, followed by hours of digitizing old files and organizing Blake's mother's archives. The work was quiet, simple, honest. In the afternoons, Blake stopped by with fresh bread from the local bakery, or a book he thought Lily might like. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just worked side by side. There was comfort in the silence between them, a language that didn't need to be explained. But not everything could stay untouched by the world. The call came on a Thursday morning just as Maya finished uploading a batch of patient files. The phone Blake had lent her buzzed on the table, its screen lighting up with a local number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Hi, is this Miss Maya Williams? A crisp, professional voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Angela Browning. the enrollment coordinator at Maple Creek Elementary. We received your change of address form and enrollment request for Lily Carter Williams. Maya stood, heart already picking up. Yes, I sent it in this week. We just had a few clarifying questions. You've listed Blake Carter's address as your residence? Yes, temporarily. He's allowing us to stay on the property. There was a pause. I see. And may I ask what your relationship is to Mr. Carter? Maya stiffened. The question was posed gently, but the implication sat heavy behind it. He's a friend, she replied. More silence. Then, we just need to ensure documentation aligns with district requirements. Is Mr. Carter the child's legal guardian? No, Maya said firmly. I'm her mother, her only parent. Understood. Thank you for clarifying. In that case, we'll proceed. You'll be notified within 5 business days of the final decision. After the call ended, Maya stared at the phone for a long time. It wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say. She'd heard it before. In whispers, in pauses, in perfectly polite disapproval. A black woman, a white man, a little girl with curls and caramel skin, living together, not related, not married. It didn't sit cleanly in systems designed to separate stories into neat boxes. She stepped outside into the afternoon light. Blake was working in the garden, sleeves rolled up, dirt on his hands. When he saw her, his brow furrowed. Something wrong? School called, she said, wrapping her arms around herself. They're asking questions, about us, about Lily. Blake wiped his hands on a towel and walked over. What kind of questions? The kind that aren't really questions, she said. They want to know what box we fit in. Blake sighed. And you told them the truth? I did. Then that's all that matters. Maya exhaled, long and slow. It's never that simple. For you, maybe, but not for me. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain away her experience. He just nodded, understanding that some things he'd never fully understand. Later that evening, while Lily napped, Maya busied herself in the kitchen, cleaning just to feel productive. That's when the knock came at the door. A tall woman in a navy cardigan stood on the porch, clipboard in hand, smile tight. Good evening, she said. Miss Williams, I'm with the district. I was hoping to verify some residency details in person. Maya blinked. I wasn't told someone would be stopping by. I apologize. Sometimes we're sent to expedite certain files. Maya stepped aside slowly. Come in. The woman walked in with careful steps, eyes flicking over the small but tidy space Lily's drawings on the fridge, a half-folded quilt on the couch, a pan cooling on the stovetop. How long have you been residing here? The woman asked, pen poised. A little over a week. And you're employed? Temporarily, Maya said. I'm assisting Mr. Carter with archiving personal family records. No formal contract, but he compensates me. I see, the woman said, jotting something down. And Mr. Carter, is he often present in the home? Maya's mouth tightened. He stops by. This is his property. Another note. Another pause. He's not the child's guardian? No, Maya said sharply. I told the school that. I'm Lily's mother. That hasn't changed. The woman offered a thin smile. Of course. We just like to ensure that all students are placed in stable, appropriate environments. Before Maya could reply, Blake entered through the back door, wiping his hands with a rag, clearly unaware of the visitor. When he saw the clipboard, his expression shifted. Can I help you? He asked. I'm with the school district, the woman said, just verifying Miss Williams' residence and employment. Is that standard protocol? He asked calmly, but there was something firm beneath his tone. Occasionally, she replied. He stepped forward. Miss Williams and her daughter are guests on my property. Lily is enrolled under her care. If you need confirmation in writing, I can provide it. But unless there's a legal issue, I'd prefer you not drop by unannounced again. The woman blinked, then nodded stiffly. Of course, thank you for your time. When she left, Maya let out a long breath. Blake turned to her. I'm sorry. You didn't do anything. I let them in. This town, its habits, its suspicions. Maya shook her head. You can't protect me from everything. Maybe not, he said, but I can try. That night, they didn't talk much. But before bed, Lily pulled Blake aside and handed him a picture, a small house with flowers in the yard, 3 people inside, holding hands. "It's us," she whispered, "even if they don't like it." He hugged her gently. "They don't get to decide what family looks like," he said. The rain arrived in sheets just past midnight. It beat against the windows of the guest house like a warning, a lullaby, and a memory all at once. Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting each rumble of thunder as if it might unlock something inside her that had long been locked shut. Lily slept through the storm, curled beneath the quilt, her tiny fingers clutching the plush bear Blake had given her. Maya, on the other hand, was restless. The day had left her worn not from physical labor, but from the emotional labor of being examined, judged, measured for approval she had never asked for. She rose, padded barefoot to the kitchenette, and poured herself a glass of water. Outside, the trees swayed violently in the wind. The guest house creaked and groaned like an old soul fighting to stay standing. She didn't know what pulled her toward the closet tucked behind the small reading chair, but something did. Maybe it was the storm, maybe it was the silence. Inside the closet, on the top shelf behind a stack of blankets, she found a box labeled Edna, Personal. The handwriting was familiar from the journals she'd been archiving, sharp, neat, cursive, full of certainty. Blake's mother. She hesitated, then brought it to the table. The box was light. Inside, a collection of letters bound by a ribbon, a pair of old reading glasses, and at the bottom, a faded photograph in a cracked wooden frame. It was a black and white picture of a young Edna, in full nursing uniform, standing beside a younger Blake no more than 10 years old, all elbows and shyness. Behind them, a small clinic with peeling paint and a hand-painted sign. Carter Community Care. Maya ran her finger over the glass. She hadn't known Edna, but she felt her presence everywhere in the house. The guest house, the books on the shelf, and the man her son had become. She set the photograph on the counter beside her tea and returned the rest to the box. The next morning brought a soft light, as if the storm had wrung every bit of noise from the sky. Blake showed up with groceries and a box of fresh pastries from town. He was damp around the collar and looked like he hadn't slept much either. "You look tired," Maya said as he walked in. "I could say the same," he replied, setting the bags on the counter. The wind kept banging the barn door all night. "Die." Maya gestured to the photo. "I found this in the closet. I hope that's okay." Blake stepped closer, picked up the frame, and stared for a moment. "She hated that uniform," he said, half smiling. "Said the cap made her look like a waitress, not a nurse." Maya laughed. She wore it anyway, because the patients liked it. She always put them first. Even when she was sick, she'd ask the nurses in her hospice how they were doing. "She must have been something," Maya said. "She was," Blake said. "Stubborn as sin, but kind." Maya looked at him, quietly. "You remind me of her." He glanced at her with something between surprise and curiosity. "I don't think anyone's ever told me that." "It's a compliment," she said. He nodded. "Then I'll take it." They spent the morning scanning more of Edna's notes, working in a comfortable silence that had become familiar. Occasionally, Blake read aloud a line or two, always with a reverent tone. "Mrs. Hutchins says the loneliness hurts worse than the chemo." Maya shook her head. "These are stories no one else hears." She made sure someone did. As they worked, Lily sat on the floor nearby, drawing quietly. At one point, she brought a new picture to Blake, a colorful house with 2 front doors. "One is ours," she said, "and one is for people who need help." Blake knelt beside her. "What do you mean?" She shrugged. "Like how you helped us. Other people might need that too." "Oh." He looked at Maya, eyes unreadable. "She thinks big. She thinks honest," Maya said. Later, Blake asked if Maya wanted to walk the main house with him to see the old clinic space where his mother had worked before she retired. Maya agreed, curious and, if she were honest, eager for a chance to learn more about where she had landed. They stepped into the main house, warm with the scent of cedar and something faintly floral, lavender maybe, or old wood polish. The walls were lined with framed photos. A younger Edna, arms around patients, a plaque from the local health board, and one picture of Blake and Emma on their wedding day. Maya paused at that one. Emma was beautiful light brown hair, soft smile, eyes that spoke of mischief and depth. Blake, younger by at least 10 years, had the look of a man in full bloom, confident, hopeful. She looks kind, Maya said. She was, Blake replied. Too kind for this world sometimes. Maya felt the weight of his memory and stepped gently around it. Did she work here too? No. Emma was a school counselor, but she used to help my mother with patients when needed. They were close. He walked ahead, leading her to a side room that had once been a waiting area. The space was dusty but still carried the echo of what it had been: chairs lined up neatly, faded posters on wellness, a small bookshelf in the corner with children's stories and magazines from a decade ago. I've been thinking, Blake said, voice low, what if we reopened this? Not as a full clinic, but as a community space. A place where people like Edna used to help others. Nothing official, no red tape, just compassion. Maya blinked. You'd really do that? Not alone, he said, looking at her, but with the right person helping, maybe. She felt her breath catch. I'm not a nurse anymore. You're a mother, you're patient, you care. That's more than enough. Duh. Outside, the rain had returned, softer this time. Inside, Maya looked around the old clinic room and saw possibility. Not just for the town, not just for Blake, but for herself. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't scare her. It waited. The cold came back fast that evening, slipping through the cracks in the window frames and settling like a whisper into the corners of the guest house. Maya noticed it first when she stepped barefoot onto the wood floor and felt the chill shoot straight up her spine. She glanced at the thermostat. It blinked blankly, lifeless. The heater had gone out. Of course, she muttered, wrapping her arms around herself. Lily was curled on the couch beneath a blanket, drawing with markers, blissfully unaware of the creeping cold. Maya didn't want to worry her, but she also knew nights in Maple Creek could drop below freezing, especially in late November. She layered on a sweatshirt, then a second one, pulling her coat from the hook by the door. The outside light had faded, the sky a dark slate gray. She peeked into the hallway closet, found a stack of older quilts still clean and smelling faintly of cedar, but knew it wouldn't be enough for the whole night. She stepped out into the frosty air and made her way across the gravel path toward the farmhouse. Porch lights glowed softly, casting warm light on the wooden rails, dusted with early frost. Before she could knock, the door opened. Blake stood there in his flannel shirt and jeans, holding a steaming mug. I saw the porch light flicker. Everything okay? The heater's out, Maya said, rubbing her gloved hands together. Thermostat's dead. He stepped aside immediately. Come in. Let me grab my tools. I didn't mean to bother you this late. Blake didn't look at her. Just set the mug down on a side table and pulled on his jacket. It's no bother. Minutes later, he was crouched by the old furnace in the guest house, flashlight in one hand, screwdriver in the other, brow furrowed in concentration. Maya watched from across the room, arms crossed more from nerves than cold now. It's not the filter, Blake said under his breath. Might be the fuse or the board. Zoo. Lily peeked around the corner. Is Mr. Blake fixing the house? Yes, baby. He's trying. Can I help? She asked eagerly. Blake looked up, smiling softly. You're already helping by being warm and brave. Lily grinned, then went back to her crayons. Maya knelt beside him. Be honest. Is it done for? Maybe not, he said. But if I can't fix it tonight, you're not staying here in the cold. Maya stiffened. We'll be fine. He looked at her, straight and steady. No, you won't. And I won't let that happen. There was no argument in his voice. No room for pride or protest. Just simple, unshakable concern. An hour later, after trying every workaround he could think of, Blake finally sat back, exhaling. It's the control board, he said. I'll order a new one tomorrow, but it won't get here until at least Monday. Maya nodded slowly. We'll bundle up. It's not that bad. It's going to drop into the 20s tonight, Maya. She stood, wiping her hands on her jeans. We've slept in worse. Blake's voice rose slightly. Not angry, just firm. Not here. Not while I have a warm house 30 steps away. Maya opened her mouth, ready to argue, but the words caught in her throat. She was so used to proving she could endure discomfort that she forgot she didn't always have to. "Okay," she said quietly, "but just for the night." He nodded. "I'll turn on the fireplace in the den. You can take the guest room upstairs. It's warmer." Maya gathered a sleepy Lily in her arms, wrapped in 2 blankets, and followed Blake across the dark path toward the farmhouse. The night air bit at her cheeks, but the porch lights welcomed them in like old friends. Inside, the house smelled of firewood and lemon polish. A golden retriever blanket lay across the couch, and an antique piano sat quietly in the corner of the den. The fireplace crackled as Blake added another log. Lily's eyes lit up. "It's like a castle." Blake chuckled. "Not quite, but I'm glad you like it." Maya carried Lily upstairs, tucking her into a soft bed with crisp sheets and a thick down comforter. The little girl sank into the mattress with a sigh. "This feels like clouds," she murmured. Maya smoothed her hair and kissed her forehead. "You deserve clouds." Downstairs, Blake was sitting in the den, a book in his lap, eyes distant. "You didn't have to do all this," Maya said as she sat across from him. "I know," he replied, "but I wanted to." "Mo." She watched the fire flicker. "You always like taking care of things?" He turned to look at her. Only the things worth keeping warm. She didn't know how to respond to that, so she let the fire speak for them. Minutes passed. Then Blake broke the silence. "Emma used to love nights like this. Cold outside, fire in the hearth, a glass of wine. She'd play piano when she thought I wasn't listening." "You play?" "Not since she died." Maya looked at the piano. "It's beautiful." She found it at an estate sale. Paid more to have it tuned than to buy it." Maya smiled. "She sounds like she had good taste." She did, in furniture, music, and people. His eyes met hers, not flirtatious, not demanding, just honest. Maya felt something shift in her chest. Not romance. Not yet. But a widening space. A quiet opening. After a while, she stood. "Thank you, Blake. Really. You're welcome." She turned to head up the stairs, but paused. "Why are you doing all this?" He looked into the fire. "Because you walked into that diner, and my life hasn't been the same since. And because I think we both know what it feels like to be cold for too long." She nodded once, then climbed the stairs. In the guest room, Lily was already dreaming. Maya slipped under the covers, the warmth wrapping around her like a story she hadn't heard in years. She lay there in the dark, thinking about clouds, broken heaters, and the unexpected kindness of men who fix things without asking anything in return. Outside, the wind howled against the house. Inside, everything was quiet and finally, warm. Sunday morning arrived with frost painted across every blade of grass, rooftops glinting like they'd been dusted with crushed crystal. The town of Maple Creek, quiet during the week, took on a peculiar hum on Sundays, a blend of ritual, routine, and the subtle sharpening of gazes. Maya stood at the mirror in the guest room, brushing Lily's hair gently. The little girl was dressed in a soft, rose-colored cardigan and a plaid skirt, the kind of outfit Maya rarely had reason to pull from her daughter's suitcase. "Do I look church enough?" Lily asked, wrinkling her nose in the mirror. "You look perfect," Maya said, smiling faintly. "Now turn around and let me fix this bow." From downstairs came the smell of maple syrup and frying bacon, Blake's version of Sunday breakfast. He was a man of quiet faith, not the kind who preached, but the kind who showed up every week and stood in the same pew, hands in his coat pockets, eyes on the stained glass. After the heater had broken days before, Maya had resisted staying another night at Blake's farmhouse, but Lily's fevered sniffles made the decision for her. And though the guest house had since been repaired, Maya had stayed half out of caution, half because it felt safe. Downstairs, Blake stood by the kitchen counter, pouring orange juice into 3 mismatched glasses. When Maya and Lily came down, he paused mid-pour. "You two look like you stepped out of a magazine," he said. Maya raised a brow. "You trying to flatter your guests?" Blake smiled. "Just speaking facts." "No." He wore a deep navy suit jacket, clean white shirt beneath it, no tie. He looked like the man who owned the land and the sky above it. "I wasn't sure if we should go," Maya admitted as she sat down. "You're welcome to come," Blake said, handing her a plate, but I won't make that decision for you. Maya hesitated. People might not like it. People already don't like it, he said plainly. You might as well give them a reason. Oz. The old white church sat on the east edge of town, a squat steeple that scraped the blue sky like a memory. Cars lined up along the gravel lot, families bundled in coats, handshakes exchanged in hushed tones, nods that meant, I see you, even when the words didn't. Blake parked the truck near the side entrance. You sure about this? Maya asked softly as she unbuckled Lily. He glanced at her. No, but I'm tired of living like we need permission to exist. Oh. Lily took Maya's hand, then reached for Blake's. The three of them walked up the steps together. Inside, the scent of polished wood, hymnal books, and old perfume greeted them. Heads turned, conversations paused. Maya felt it before she saw it, the weight of eyes. Blake's presence, calm and steady, offered her something to lean into, but she didn't show it. She stood tall. Reverend Halbrook, an older man with kind eyes and a limp from an old farm injury, stepped forward from the altar steps. Blake, he said warmly, offering his hand. Good to see you back. Blake shook it. Good to be here. And these lovely ladies? This is Maya Williams, Blake said without hesitation. And her daughter, Lily. They're staying at my place. Halbrook smiled and bent slightly to Lily. Well, aren't you just a little sunshine? Lily grinned. I drew a church yesterday. Did you now? I'd love to see it. Maya felt her shoulders ease a fraction. Not everyone here had sharp tongues. They sat near the middle of the pews. The service was quiet, full of old hymns and simple truths. No fire and brimstone, just words about hope, compassion, and the strength it takes to extend grace to others. Maya listened, not as someone searching for salvation, but as someone desperate to believe good still existed in places not designed for her. During the final hymn, she caught a glimpse of Mrs. Kellerman, post office gossip queen, whispering to a man beside her. Their eyes flicked over toward Maya and Lily. A tight smile, a raised brow. Maya met their gaze, and didn't look away. After the service, families gathered in the foyer, sipping coffee, nibbling on store-bought cookies. Maya stood near the coat rack, helping Lily put on her scarf when Mrs. Kellerman approached. Well, Mr. Carter, she began sweetly, we've missed seeing you on Sundays. Blake turned to her. I haven't been far. Her gaze shifted to Maya. And who is this young woman? Maya extended her hand. Maya Williams. It's nice to meet you. Mrs. Kellerman smiled tight enough to crack porcelain. A pleasure, I'm sure. There was a beat of silence before she added, I didn't realize Blake had taken on boarders. We're not boarders, Maya replied calmly. We're guests. Well, Maple Creek does pride itself on hospitality, Mrs. Kellerman said. Especially when we know who's coming and going. Blake's smile dropped. Agnes, if there's something you want to say it plain. Mrs. Kellerman blinked, clearly unused to being called out in front of others. Only that this town has always been cautious about change. Maybe that's the problem, Blake said, voice low but sharp. Change doesn't wait for permission. He reached for Maya's coat and helped her into it without another word. Outside, the cold nipped at their faces, but Maya felt warmer than she had all morning. You didn't have to defend me, she said as they walked to the truck. I wasn't defending you, Blake said, opening the door for Lily. I was standing next to you. They drove home in silence, save for Lily humming in the back seat. When they got back, Maya lingered on the porch while Lily ran inside to draw another church, this one with their names etched on the steeple. You know, Maya said, staring out over the field, I didn't think I'd ever set foot in a place like that again. Zero. What changed your mind? You. Blake looked at her. What about me? You don't flinch when they stare, and you don't run when things get ugly. He nodded slowly. Neither do you. And for the first time, standing on that porch in the icy air, Maya realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was choosing. The snow came early that year. By mid-afternoon, the fields behind Blake's house were blanketed in white, undisturbed except for Lily's small footprints weaving erratically through the drifts. Maya watched her daughter through the window, her breath fogging the glass slightly, one hand wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea. Lily laughed outside, bundled in a coat 2 sizes too big. Blake had found it in a storage bin labeled Emma, Winter, and offered it with a hesitant, quiet kind of tenderness. Maya had accepted it with a nod and a soft, "Thank you," knowing the layers of memory stitched into every thread. "Need another blanket?" Blake asked, walking in from the hallway, hair still damp from a quick shower. "I'm good," Maya said, turning from the window. She's never seen snow like this before, not where we came from. Blake poured himself a cup of coffee and stood beside her. Funny how something as simple as snow can feel like magic to a kid. Magic, Maya repeated, then chuckled under her breath. I used to think that too when I was her age. Then I got old enough to know how hard it was to heat a one-bedroom apartment. Blake glanced at her, noting the heaviness beneath her voice. You ever talk about it? Your past? Not unless I have to. He didn't push. Instead, he pointed out the window. She's making snow angels. Bad ones. But still, Maya smiled. She's trying. That's what counts. Oh, the day passed slowly, wrapped in a cocoon of quiet routines. Maya worked on scanning the last few journals Edna had kept during her nursing years. Lily napped under the quilt, exhausted from the cold, and Blake, always finding some task to keep his hands busy, restocked the woodpile behind the house, then checked on the generator in case the storm worsened. But as the sun dipped low and shadows lengthened across the snow, a strange restlessness crept into the guest house. Maya felt it in her chest, a tightness that hadn't been there earlier. Maybe it was the quiet, or the isolation, or maybe it was the weight of everything unspoken. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, and the house settled into hush, Maya walked out onto the porch. The cold bit at her cheeks, but the air was clear, the stars sharp against a velvet sky. She stood there for a long time, letting the silence hold her. Then she heard the creak of the steps behind her. Blake, he joined her wordlessly, offering a small silver flask. Don't worry, he said. It's just cider, warmed. She took a sip, sweet, spicy, comforting. They stood like that for a while, shoulders nearly touching, eyes on the sky. I used to think quiet was a bad thing, Maya said finally. Where I grew up, silence meant trouble. Someone was mad. Something was about to go wrong. Blake didn't speak. He waited. But here, she continued, it feels different. Like quiet is where the healing happens. Blake nodded. Emma used to say that too. She loved winter. Said it was the world's way of forcing us to slow down. Maya turned toward him. You talk about her a lot more now. I didn't used to. It hurt too much. Talking made it feel real. And now? Now, he said, it still hurts. But the silence hurts more. They sat on the porch swing, the creak of old wood beneath them rhythmic, comforting. Do you blame yourself? Maya asked quietly. Blake's breath caught, just slightly. Every day. Why? Because I was working late. Because she was driving home alone. Because the weather was bad. And I should have insisted she stay at the school until morning. Maya looked at him. That's not your fault. He met her eyes. Neither is what happened to you. She inhaled slowly, looked out toward the woods. I worked in hospice care, you know? I was good at it. Until I wasn't. Until one of the patient's sons accused me of stealing a watch, a family heirloom. Blake's brows furrowed. Did you? No, she said firmly. But it didn't matter. I was the only black employee. They didn't even ask questions, just told me to leave. I begged them to wait for the security footage, to ask the patient who had dementia, by the way, but they said it would be better for everyone if I stepped away quietly. Blake exhaled through his nose, slow and angry. Jesus, Maisie, I didn't steal that watch, Maya repeated. But I lost everything anyway. My job, my references, my dignity. They said they wouldn't press charges if I agreed not to make noise. So you stayed quiet. For Lily, always for her. Blake looked at her, long and deep. You don't owe them your silence anymore. No, she said, blinking fast. I don't. A beat passed between them, thick, tender, unspoken. Then Maya laughed softly. Look at us, sitting out here like two broken records, spilling our stories like campfire ghost tales. We're not broken, Blake said, just bent. She turned to face him, surprised by the warmth in his voice. Then, without thinking, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small photograph. She handed it to him. Blake took it gently. It was a photo of Maya, much younger, holding a newborn Lily in a hospital gown. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were tired, but her face held something fierce and beautiful determination. "That's who I used to be," she said. "Before all of this." Blake handed it back, his fingers brushing hers. "That's still who you are." They sat there until the chill forced them inside, but the fire in the hearth burned steady, and the scar tissue they both carried no longer felt like armor. It felt like proof that they'd survived. The following morning brought quiet snow and the scent of cinnamon. Maya stirred before the sun crested the horizon, sliding carefully out from under the quilt so she wouldn't wake Lily. She wrapped herself in a thick robe Blake had left outside the guest room door the night before, folded neatly, without a word, and padded downstairs, her footsteps silent on the worn hardwood. The kitchen was warm, golden with early light. She moved by instinct now, knowing where Blake kept the flour, where the coffee filters were hidden, and how long the old kettle took to whistle. As she cracked eggs into a pan, she didn't hear Blake come in, just felt the shift in the air. "You're up early," he said, voice still rough with sleep. "So are you," she replied without turning. "Couldn't sleep." "Me neither." He sat at the kitchen island, watching her as she cooked. The silence between them was no longer awkward. It was something else now, thicker, fuller, like everything didn't have to be said out loud anymore. When breakfast was ready, eggs, toast, coffee, and the last of the apple butter, she joined him at the table. They ate quietly until a knock came at the front door. Maya looked up. "You expecting anyone?" "No," Blake said, already rising. He opened the door to find a delivery driver in a blue parka, holding a clipboard in one hand and a small envelope in the other. "Morning, Mr. Carter," the man said. "Certified letter for a Miss Williams. Needs a signature." Blake turned toward Maya. She stood slowly, heart starting to tap faster in her chest. Certified. That was never good. She signed the form, accepted the envelope, and shut the door. The paper was thick, the envelope official. Her name printed in sharp, black font across the front. Blake watched her from across the room. "You okay?" Maya didn't answer right away. She sat back down, broke the seal, and unfolded the letter. Her eyes skimmed the words, once, twice, then a third time. Her hands shook. Blake moved toward her. "Maya? It's from the hospice center," she said quietly. "Where I used to work. What do they want?" "They're apologizing." She blinked, stunned. Apparently, the patient's son, Mr. Brandt, finally confessed. He'd taken the watch himself, sold it, claimed it had been stolen to cover up the debt. "Ugh." Blake sat across from her, brow furrowed. "They're admitting fault?" "They are. They're offering to reinstate me, provide a letter of recommendation, and cover lost wages for the time I was unemployed." Maya let the letter fall to the table. Her eyes brimmed. "It's too late." Blake nodded. "Yeah, but it still matters." She didn't respond for a long time. Her hand slowly closed around the letter again, as if unsure whether to throw it in the fire or frame it. "I begged them to listen," she whispered. "They didn't believe me. They didn't even look me in the eye when they fired me. But they believe you now." "It's not about belief," she said. "It's about damage. They cracked something in me, Blake, and I've been trying to tape it back together ever since." Blake reached across the table and gently took her hand. "They may have cracked it," he said, "but they didn't shatter it. You're still here." She nodded, tears falling silently. "You have no idea what that kind of letter means when you've been silent for so long. It's not even the money. It's the words, the admission." Later that afternoon, after Lily had gone out with a neighbor's daughter to build snowmen, Maya sat by the fire with the letter in her lap. Blake brought her a cup of tea and set it down gently. "You thinking about taking them up on the offer?" She looked up. "I don't know. Do you think I should?" "I think," he said slowly, "that you've already proven what kind of woman you are. You don't need a letter to confirm it, but if it gives you peace, take it." Maya smiled faintly. "You always say just the right thing." "I doubt that," he said, sitting beside her, "but I mean it." They sat in silence for a moment before Maya spoke again. "I told Lily that the world isn't fair, but that we have to try anyway. Maybe this letter is the world's way of trying. Maybe it's your story turning a page." Maya folded the letter carefully, tucking it into a book on the side table, Edna's old journal. "I think I want to write about all this someday," she said. You should. I want Lily to know where she came from, what we went through, that she was the reason I kept standing, even when the ground broke under me. Blake didn't say anything, just watched her, his expression soft and proud. That night, Maya helped Lily write her name for the first time in cursive. The little girl grinned, proud of her shaky, looping letters. Look, Mama, I did it. Maya kissed the top of her head. Yes, you did. And for the first time in months, Maya felt like something inside her had clicked back into place, not forced, not taped, but healed. The letter had not undone the pain, but it had made space for a new chapter. The letter changed more than just Maya's heart, it shifted the air around her, the way people looked at her when she walked through Maple Creek's main street. There was still the occasional sidelong glance, the awkward silence at the grocer's register. But more often now, there were nods. Small ones. Hesitant, but present. 1 week after the letter arrived, a knock came at the farmhouse door late in the morning. Blake was in the barn, tending to repairs, and Lily was outside with her snow shovel, clearing imaginary roads into the backyard. Maya opened the door to find a man in a camel-colored wool coat and thick-rimmed glasses. He was holding a clipboard and wore a hesitant, almost apologetic smile. "Miss Williams?" he asked. "Yes? My name's Everett Collings. I'm with the Maple Creek Civic Committee." He extended a gloved hand. "I'm also the town librarian." "No." Maya shook his hand, cautious but polite. "What can I help you with?" "I wanted to personally invite you to the Winter Town Hall next Saturday evening," he said. "We host it every year. It's a chance for the community to share updates, concerns, and ideas." Maya tilted her head. "Why me?" "Well, to be honest, people have been talking." Her chest tightened. "I'm sure they have." No, not like that," he said quickly. "They've been saying how you handled yourself at church, how respectful your little girl is, how your presence here, it's made Blake different." Maya raised a brow. "Different?" "More open, more present. He's been attending town meetings again, offering help, listening. That used to be Emma's role." Maya softened, just slightly. "We're hoping," Everett continued, "you'll come to the meeting, and maybe say a few words. Nothing official. Just share what brought you here, what you've seen, what this town still needs." She studied him for a moment. "Do you ask everyone new to town to speak?" Everett flushed. "Honestly? No. But you're not just anyone. You're the first person in a long time who's stirred people's curiosity without asking for attention." Maya was silent, her hand still on the door frame. Everett cleared his throat. "Think about it. We'd be honored to have you." She thanked him and watched as he walked back to the street, his coat whipping in the wind. That night, Maya brought it up at dinner. "I got invited to the town hall." Blake looked up from his plate. "That's unusual. They want me to speak." His brow lifted. "That's very unusual." Maya twisted her fork. "Should I go?" Blake leaned back in his chair. "Do you want to?" "I don't know. I've never spoken in front of strangers before. Not like that." "Then maybe it's time," he said. "This town needs to hear a voice that isn't just their own echo." She thought for a long moment. "If I do this, I want to talk about more than just me." "Then do." "I want to talk about Lily. About what it means to raise a little girl in a place where her worth might be questioned before her name is even known." Blake met her eyes. "Then say that." The week passed quickly, marked by rehearsals spoken quietly in the kitchen while Lily napped, and scribbled note cards tucked into Maya's coat pocket. Blake listened to her speak once, leaning against the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed, nodding when she made a point that cut to the bone. The night of the town hall arrived cold and clear. The sky was sharp with stars, and the air smelled of pine and chimney smoke. The town hall was held in the old community center, a large wooden building with peeling white paint, a sagging roof, and a proud, hand-carved sign that read, "Built by us, for us, 1926. Inside, the heater groaned loudly, but the room was full rows of folding chairs lined up before a small stage where a microphone stood. Residents milled about with paper cups of cider, talking in hushed tones. Blake arrived with Maya and Lily, walking beside them, not in front. As they stepped inside, conversations dipped in volume, eyes turned, but no one stared with malice, just interest. Everett greeted them near the front. "Glad you came," he said warmly. As the meeting began, the mayor spoke briefly about road repair budgets and snow removal. The local school principal discussed an upcoming fundraiser. Then Everett stepped to the microphone. "We have one more guest tonight," he said. "Someone you may have seen, but perhaps not yet heard." He gestured toward Maya. "Miss Maya Williams, if you'd join us?" The room shifted. A quiet wave of anticipation settled. Maya stood, heart thudding, and made her way to the stage. Her palms were damp, her breath short. But she took the mic and looked out at the faces, some skeptical, some curious, a few encouraging. "My name is Maya Williams," she began. "I came to Maple Creek not because I wanted to, but because I had nowhere else to go." A hush fell deeper across the room. "I lost my job because someone lied. And when I asked for justice, I was told to be quiet. So I left. With my daughter. With what little we had." She glanced at Lily in the front row, then back at the crowd. "But what I found here was not just shelter. I found someone who listened. I found kindness. And yes, I also found fear. Hesitation. People wondering why someone like me would come to a place like this." She paused, letting the silence breathe. "But I stayed. Because I believe community isn't built by bloodlines or property deeds. It's built by showing up, by sharing stories, and by deciding, again and again, to see each other." A murmur moved through the room, soft, respectful. "My daughter is 5 years old. Her world is still forming. The things she sees now will shape the woman she becomes. And I want her to see that courage looks like speaking truth in a room full of strangers." Maya stepped back. "Thank you for letting me share." The applause came slow, at first, then fuller, deeper. When Maya stepped off the stage, Blake met her at the steps. "You didn't just speak," he said quietly. "You made them listen." "No." She looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "Instead," she said, "I think I'm ready." "For what?" "For whatever comes next." The next morning arrived slower than usual, as if the town itself were still digesting Maya's words from the night before. A light snowfall dusted the porch railings, and in the stillness of dawn, Maya stood in the kitchen of the farmhouse, staring out the window with a warm mug in her hands and a storm of new questions in her chest. Blake entered, tying his flannel robe loosely at the waist. "You didn't sleep," he said softly. Maya turned, smiling faintly. "Neither did you," he chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "You stirred up a lot of dust in that room last night." "I didn't mean to make noise." "You didn't," he said. "You told the truth. People just aren't used to hearing it spoken that clear." She leaned against the counter. "Everett called early this morning. He said people are asking if I'd consider joining the community advisory board. Said they want more perspectives at the table." Blake raised an eyebrow. "That's fast." "It is. And?" "I said I'd think about it." He nodded slowly. "Do you want to?" "I'm not sure," she admitted. "I didn't come here to get involved. I came here to disappear." Blake stepped closer. "But you didn't disappear. You walked right into the light." Maya looked down at her hands. "I guess I got tired of hiding." "No." Before Blake could respond, the door swung open and Lily burst in, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Mama," she shouted, tugging on her sleeve. "Come see what I made." Maya set her mug down and followed her daughter outside. The snow in the front yard had been carefully sculpted into a small figure round head. 2 stick arms. Buttons made of acorns. But it wasn't just a snowman. It was a snow woman, with a scarf and a little baby snow girl beside her, their arms linked. "I made us," Lily said proudly. Maya knelt beside her, tears instantly stinging her eyes. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Blake stepped out onto the porch, watching them. "I want her to remember this," Maya said quietly, standing again. "Not just the snow, but that she was safe. That she was seen." "She'll remember," Blake said, "because of you." They walked back inside, Lily's mittens soaked, her laughter trailing behind them like music. Later that afternoon, Maya and Blake sat in the den while Lily napped upstairs. The fire crackled low, and the storm clouds outside hinted at another heavy snowfall on the way. Blake held a thin stack of letters in his lap. "I've been meaning to show you something." Maya leaned forward, curious. "These are from Emma," he said, placing the bundle between them on the coffee table. Old letters. She wrote them during her final year, some addressed to me, some to herself. Never mailed them. I found them months after she passed. Maya touched the top envelope gently. May I? He nodded. She opened the first one. The handwriting was elegant, slightly slanted, full of small loops and flourishes. Blake, it began, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you're still stubbornly pretending the world doesn't need your heart anymore. But I hope someday, someone comes along and reminds you who you are. And more importantly, who you can still be. Maya's breath caught. She wrote like she knew me. She wrote like she hoped someone like you would find me. There was a long silence. Then Maya said, "What happens now?" Blake leaned back, his eyes steady. "Now, I fix the gate out back before the storm knocks it off its hinges." Maya smiled. "That's not what I meant." "I know." He set the rest of the letters aside. "I think, now, we figure it out. Day by day. No rush. No pressure. You don't owe anyone anything, Maya. Not me. Not this town. You've already earned your place here." She looked at him, her voice quieter. "And if I want to stay?" He didn't blink. "Then stay." Another pause. Another shift. "And if I want more than just a room to sleep in?" she asked softly. Blake's expression didn't change, but his voice deepened, tender. "Then we start from wherever you're ready. We build something from the ground up." Maya nodded, tears glimmering but unshed. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," he said. "But being scared means it matters." That evening, as snow began to fall again in heavy, soft flakes, Maya stood by the window, watching the yard fill with white. Lily slept on the couch under a crocheted blanket, clutching a half-drawn picture of the Snow Woman family. Blake came up behind her and quietly wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. The farmhouse was quiet, but it no longer felt like silence. It felt like peace. A new peace. Earned, not given. Fragile, but real. Outside, the wind swept gently across the fields. Inside, Maya took a slow breath and finally let it go. The next morning, the wind had teeth. Snow piled high against the porch railings, and the sky hung low and heavy over Maple Creek like a wool blanket ready to fall. The local news warned of a winter storm sweeping through the Midwest, and by midday, all highways in and out of town had been closed. Blake stood by the fireplace, tossing on another log, the scent of pine wood filling the living room. His flannel shirt was rolled at the sleeves, and a dusting of snow clung to his boots. Maya sat at the dining table with Lily, helping her build a tiny schoolhouse out of popsicle sticks and glue. Outside, the storm picked up speed, swallowing sound and color. The world beyond the windows became nothing but a wash of white. "Storm's gonna bury us in," Blake said, brushing snow off his shoulders. Maya looked up. "How long do you think it'll last?" 2 days, maybe 3. "We have enough food?" Blake smiled. "Plenty, but we may lose power tonight if the wind keeps up. Should I boil water?" "Already done." Maya nodded. There was a kind of rhythm now between them, unspoken, fluid, practical. They moved through daily life, like two people who'd been on the same page for years, not weeks. Blake disappeared into the basement to check the generator, and Maya bundled Lily into her coat for one last play session before the storm got worse. 10 minutes later, as Maya was dusting snow from Lily's coat inside the mudroom, Blake came back up with a frown deepening between his brows. "Generator's not responding," he said. "Starter's acting up. I'll need to tinker with it. Should I start lighting candles just in case?" He nodded. "Might be wise." That night, after dinner, the lights flickered twice, then went out completely. Blake's voice rang out calmly from the den. "All right, folks, candle time." Maya grabbed the emergency lantern from the pantry and lit 3 tall pillar candles from the fireplace mantel. The warm glow stretched across the farmhouse walls like golden fingerprints, softening the dark and comforting the edges of the unknown. Lily curled up on the couch with a blanket and Blake's dog-eared copy of The Velveteen Rabbit. Maya sat beside her, stroking her curls gently. From the kitchen, Blake returned with a plate of leftover biscuits and a jar of honey. "Well," he said, sitting on the floor with a soft grunt, "if we're going to be snowed in, we might as well be well fed." Maya chuckled. "You always this calm in a crisis?" "Only when I've got a plan." "Meh. Do you?" Not a perfect one, he admitted. But we've got firewood, food, water, and company. Could be worse. They sat together in candlelight, Lily drifting to sleep beside them. After she was settled upstairs, Maya and Blake returned to the living room, the storm howling outside like an old wolf come to prowl. I used to hate the dark, Maya admitted as she stirred the fire. Back when I was a kid, it always meant things were going to get worse. Blake settled beside her on the rug, stretching his legs toward the hearth. What changed? She glanced over at him. Maybe I just got too tired to be afraid of it. He nodded slowly. Funny, isn't it? How silence used to feel dangerous. But now, it just feels honest. They sat in that silence together for a while, broken only by the occasional crack of wood splitting in the fireplace. Then Maya spoke again, more tentative this time. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why haven't you? I don't know. Why haven't you asked me to stay? For real, I mean. Blake turned to her, eyes unreadable in the flickering light. Because I didn't want to make the decision for you. You're not, she said, but I want to know where I stand. He leaned forward slightly. You stand right here, Maya, with me. I've known that for a while. I just didn't want to trap you. You've had enough of that. A long pause. Then Maya said, what if I've already decided that I want to stay? That this quiet, this messy, beautiful middle-of-nowhere farmhouse is where I want Lily to grow up. Blake's voice was soft. Then I'd be the fool who finally got lucky. The storm screamed outside, but inside, something shifted finally and fully. Blake reached out, his fingers brushing hers, and she didn't pull away. I don't need a proposal, she whispered. Not now, not ever maybe, but I need to know I'm not walking towards something that's already half closed. Blake looked at her, voice steady. My door's not just open, it's yours. Later that night, as the storm knocked branches against the windows and snow swallowed the world whole, Maya lay beside her daughter, both wrapped in thick quilts, the fire still glowing downstairs. She listened to Lily's steady breathing and the old farmhouse groaning against the wind. And she smiled. For the first time in years, the darkness outside felt like a lullaby, not a threat. She had no idea what would come tomorrow, but for tonight, she was warm, she was wanted, and she was home. When Maya woke the next morning, the storm had passed. The farmhouse windows glowed softly with pale, amber light as the sun filtered through frosted panes. Everything was still so still, it felt like the world had stopped moving just to catch its breath. She slipped quietly out of bed, careful not to disturb Lily, who had kicked one leg free from the quilt, her tiny foot resting against Maya's hip. Maya smiled, kissed her daughter's forehead, then tiptoed downstairs. The fire had long since burned to embers, but Blake was already up, crouched in front of it, coaxing it back to life. He wore his thick cardigan and wool socks, and the smell of coffee drifted faintly from the kitchen. Morning, Maya whispered. Blake looked up and smiled, the kind of smile that didn't need words. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the fire catch. Then Maya spoke. It's strange, I feel like something changed overnight. Blake poked the log gently. It did. She crossed her arms over her chest. You mean the storm? I mean us. The quiet between them deepened, intimate, steady. I've been thinking, Maya said, moving to sit on the couch, about the advisory board, about staying here long term, about building something that's actually ours. Blake turned toward her slowly. That scares you, doesn't it? She nodded. Every part of me wants to stay, but every part of my past warns me not to trust anything that feels safe. Blake sat beside her, not too close, but not far. I can't erase what you've been through, and I won't pretend I understand all of it. But you don't have to earn your place here every day. You already belong. Maya's eyes welled up. You don't know how long I've waited to hear someone say that and mean it. He reached for her hand. You don't have to wait anymore. Before she could reply, a sharp knock at the door startled them both. Maya stood quickly, brushing her hair back, half expecting the weight of bad news. Blake moved ahead of her and opened it. It was Everett. He looked windblown and breathless, holding a rolled-up newspaper in one hand and his phone in the other. Sorry for barging in, he said, but you need to see this. Blake stepped aside, and Everett handed Maya the paper. On the front page of the Maple Creek Gazette was a photo from the town hall. Maya at the microphone, her hand poised mid-gesture. her face strong and clear. The headline read, "New Voice, New Hope, Maya Williams, calls for unity in Maple Creek." Maya's heart thudded in her chest. "There's more," Everett said, holding up his phone. The regional news station picked up the story. "It's going viral." Blake looked at her, surprised. "You're on the evening news?" Everett nodded. "They want to interview you. Tonight. Live broadcast. They said your speech resonated beyond our town. You're being called one of the voices of small-town justice." Maya blinked. "This can't be real." "It is," Everett said gently. "You've given people something to believe in." Maya sat down, her knees suddenly weak. "I never wanted this." "Oh, you didn't ask for it," Everett said. "You earned it." Blake crouched beside her. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for." "I don't think I'm ready at all," she whispered. "But you are," Blake said, "because you're not doing it for attention. You're doing it for something bigger." Maya looked out the window. The snow was starting to melt. The branches, heavy with frost earlier that morning, now dripped with light. "I'll do it," she said softly, "but I want Lily there. I want her to see me standing up." Everett smiled. "Of course, I'll arrange it." He left soon after, and Maya sat in quiet disbelief for a long time. That evening, the small regional news crew arrived in a van barely larger than a food truck. They set up inside the community center, where Maya had first spoken. Lily sat on Blake's lap in the front row, coloring quietly, while Maya waited behind a folding partition, her palms slick with nerves. The anchor, a well-dressed woman with sharp eyes and a warm voice, greeted her with practiced ease. "Just be yourself," she said. "Your story's powerful enough on its own." The camera light flicked on. "Good evening," the anchor began. "Tonight, we're joined by a woman whose words have rippled far beyond her small town. Miss Maya Williams, single mother, advocate, and the newest member of Maple Creek's Civic Board." Maya took a breath. She spoke about injustice, about strength, about the quiet battles women fight when no one's looking. She spoke about Lily, about what it meant to raise a child in a world that often doesn't see her. And when the anchor asked, "What do you hope your story changes?" Maya didn't hesitate. "I hope it reminds people that sometimes the most powerful voices come from those who were forced to whisper for too long." When it was over, applause filled the room, not canned or polite, but real. Maya stepped off the platform and knelt beside Lily. "How did I do, baby?" Lily threw her arms around her. "You sounded like a queen." Maya laughed, kissed her cheek, and turned toward Blake, who stood watching her with something fierce and proud in his eyes. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "So have you," she replied. That night, the town was quiet again. But it was no longer the silence of avoidance or fear. It was the silence that follows after truth has been spoken, the kind of silence that holds space for what comes next. Spring came slowly to Maple Creek. The snow began to melt from the edges first, the sidewalks, the barn roof, the winding trail down to the lake that Blake hadn't walked since the winter Emma passed. The earth was soft again, and robins darted across the yard, pecking at the ground like tiny search parties hunting for the season's first proof of life. Inside the farmhouse, the windows were open for the first time in months. The air that moved through the room smelled like thawing pine, fresh soil, and the faintest hint of rain. Maya stood at the kitchen sink, sleeves rolled to her elbows, rinsing the breakfast dishes while Lily sat at the table with a coloring book and Blake sipped coffee in the doorway. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Maya asked. Blake smiled, his eyes squinting slightly in the light. "Not like this. But I hoped." Lily looked up, her eyes wide. "Mama, when's the porch light coming on?" "Not until sundown, sweetheart," Maya said. "Can we leave it on all night?" she asked. Maya paused. "Sure. Why?" Lily grinned. "I want other people who are cold to know they can come here, like we did." Blake and Maya exchanged a glance. Something deep and unspoken passed between them, a quiet recognition that the home they had made, piece by piece, was already shaping the next generation to be braver, kinder. Later that afternoon, Maya walked the back trail with Blake, hand in hand. The sun was just beginning to dip low in the sky, casting a golden light across the tall grass. The air was damp and smelled of moss and something old and comforting. "I've been offered a full-time position at the town library," Maya said. Blake raised his brows. "That's amazing. I told Everett I'd think about it." "You thinking yes?" She stopped, towing a rock on the path. I think I'm ready. Not just for the job, for all of it. Blake turned to her, brushing a loose curl from her cheek. Even us? Maya smiled, tears suddenly forming in her eyes. Especially us. They stood there in the quiet, the only sound the breeze in the trees and the slow heartbeat of a life they hadn't planned but had somehow built together. You saved me, she whispered. No, Blake replied gently. You saved yourself. I just left the light on. That night, after Lily was tucked into bed and the dishes were done, Maya stepped onto the porch and flipped the old switch near the door. The porch light blinked once, then glowed steady. She stood there for a long time, arms crossed against the cooling air, staring into the stillness of the town below. In that moment, she saw her life in chapters: Georgia, the hospice job, the betrayal, the road trip that ended in frost and desperation, then the diner, the eye contact, the breakfast, the silence that had been broken by kindness instead of judgment. Now there was laughter in the house again. Music, the clatter of tiny boots running down the hall, morning coffee, shared quiet. There was purpose. There was peace. Blake stepped up behind her and wrapped an arm gently around her waist. You ever think you'd have this? He asked. No, she whispered. But now that I do, I'll never let it go. Inside, Lily stirred in her sleep and mumbled something about snow angels and peanut butter toast. The wind carried the scent of daffodils blooming near the fence, and the porch light stayed on, for anyone looking for a way in, for anyone still searching in the dark. This story reminds us that dignity can survive even in the harshest of winters. Maya's journey is a testament to quiet strength, the kind that isn't loud or dramatic, but steady, enduring, and deeply human. It teaches us that kindness, even in small moments, a shared breakfast, a porch light left on, can change the course of someone's life. And above all, it shows that healing is possible, not by forgetting the past, but by finding the courage to build something new from its ashes. Justice doesn't always come through courts or headlines. Sometimes it comes through a warm room, a child's laughter, and the decision to stay.